We are at the ethics of waiting in line. And again, Josh Flew gets the thumbs up for this. He's the one who makes it. And like I pointed out the first time, you weren't here for any of the others. But this is the very first issue that he wrote. We're used to the later ones. But you can see the, what do you call it? The genesis of the whole project. This whole project was set up to enhance the Shabbos experience so that you have something to discuss around the table. And it just works out very nicely in that it presents two sides of the ethical problems that we all run into. And this one, particularly we're talking about, is the ethics of waiting in line. So it says, waiting in a long line can be frustrating, particularly when it does not move quickly. In today's fast-paced society, we are constantly looking for ways to beat the line. Some of those strategies can present ethical challenges, especially when you consider that one person's gain is another's loss. So you have three cases. He likes three cases. Let's go through it. Michael, often these cases were could be true, but they changed the names to protect the innocent.
Or the guilty.
Okay. Michael often gets upset when his friends let others cut in front of them while waiting in line for lunch at school. One day, as it is almost Michael's turn, he notices a boy from another class with a cast on his leg and crutches under his arms. The boy looks very uncomfortable, and Michael feels that this would be a good opportunity to bend the rules and allow the boy to cut in front of him. Assume, for the argument's sake, that there are people behind Michael. He's not the last person in line, otherwise there's really no issue here. Okay, so, because he's just giving up his spot. So, assuming that there are people behind him, he wants to let this kid cut in front of him. Should he go against his normal being upset with people who do it, or should he let him go? Go ahead.
I would take the opportunity to give the boy instructions and proper usage of the crutches and then point him to the end of the line.
Oh, you would say the end of the line?
No, I would probably let him cut it.
You would let him cut in,
Yeah.
okay? What would you do? Let him cut in or
I would, if it were I would turn around and say to the people behind me, as many as would hear, would you mind very much if I let X, Y, Z in?
Okay, you'd ask the people.
A bit, so.
Better choice.
Good, you ask the people. What would you say, Margie?
The same thing. That sounds really
Yeah.
like a good idea. Just ask the people
Okay.
behind you if that's okay.
Same thing. Okay.
Of course, then if they said no, I'd still let them in.
Let 'em in.
Oh,
They
okay.
had their chance.
They had their chance, but you're still going to be the person who makes the rules. Okay. Second case. The Cohen family is on a family outing to an amusement park. The park is very crowded, and there are long lines for all of the rides. The longest line is the line for the roller coaster. Rivka, the oldest daughter, volunteers to wait in line for the roller coaster while the rest of the family enjoys another ride. In other words, she is going, when she gets there, she's going to say, 5, please, not 1. So what would you say that? Is that now, we're getting obviously close to home because this is what people do, especially at amusement parks.
Regularly.
Right. So the question is it ethically proper to do this? To save you the line. You're in the line, somebody's waiting, but when you get there, it's not just representative of you. If you have a nice big family, then 10, 5, 15, whatever it's going to be. I'm saving this, I'm going with a group of kids, and now I have 30 kids. So you can expand it.
That's a bit expensive.
So in other words,
So you're stretching the analogy to the point where it
well,
wouldn't.
I'm asking if it's 2 versus. In other words, I certainly have my ticket. I wait in line, but do I have the right to save the line, save the place for
Are you
somebody
saving
else?
the line up to buy the tickets or get on the ride? What are you talking about? You have your tickets.
I'm getting to the ride. I'm guessing. Oh, that's an interesting question.
I would say.
What I would say is like this: whatever way it's going to be, either I'm buying the ticket to get on the line or to get to the ride. I'm on the ride. I'm getting to the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, I may have 5 tickets with me, representing 5 people. I may have that, or 10, again, whatever I'm saving. I'm just saving the place. So now when my turn comes up and they say, oh, next, say, oh no, I have 5. Everybody's looking and say, what do you mean you have 5? I only have 1. Oh no, come on. I get my cell phone out. Come on, quick. Okay, and everybody comes.
Why don't you just say cell phone?
Whatever the case is. Okay? But I text them. Whatever, not by text, but I text. Okay, so is that fair? What do you say?
told me you did.
What do you say?
Um,
If they wait for my text, they'll be waiting a long time in line. Okay.
I cannot imagine that anyone who goes to a large amusement park hasn't had this happen to them. So if you're going to be so, what do you want to call it, intolerant, since the person is not, I can see holding up the line to buy the tickets would annoy me a lot more than holding up the line to get on the ride. Because if you already got the tickets, what's the matter how many bodies?
And she's not holding up the line, she's holding a place for several people.
But some people would say that
If
ride only holds, let's say the cars only hold like 4 and then 4 and then 4. That whole place would be taken up and you'd have to wait for another whole complete circuit.
Right, that's what we're talking about.
That might get people.
That's what we're talking about.
Well,
So ethically, should they do that?
Taking a page from your book, I'd ask the people behind, say I'm holding a spot for my entire family.
No, but you can't do that each time. I'm saving a spot. Every time somebody comes into a line, I'm saving a spot for my family of 30.
Family of 30 is a little excessive.
15.
Now, I would say, if the person, because I have seen when we come in amusement parks, somebody has a hard time getting around. Maybe they are on crutches or in a wheelchair or something like that. And to say to the people, my family's sitting over there because they can't walk. And the grandma can't stand here for an hour and wait for the ride.
Right.
So just letting you know that I've got a couple people with me that are waiting over there. That I can kind of see, but able-bodied people, they have to stand in line like everybody else.
Okay, so you're against it. You're saying that you're agreeing with your wife? It's a
I'm
connecto,
against,
you know?
I'm against it as well. Yeah, I mean, we all have to be adults.
guys. Oh, okay.
We all have to be adults.
Okay? So you're saying that no, you can't save a space. Okay. Let's see what happens. Stephen and Jeremy. I'm not giving you any answers yet. Well, you have to. It increases in. You'll see how it increases. Stephen and Jeremy are heading to a surprise birthday party for their aunt. They, for you non-Bostonians, aunt. Okay. They suddenly remember that they were supposed to buy the sodas and snacks. You Westerners, Midwesterners, pop and snacks. We're mixing New York and Boston, everything. Okay, sodas and snacks for the party. They are already running late, and if they have to wait in line at the supermarket to pay for the sodas and snacks, they will miss the surprise. Stephen suggests that they can save some time if he waits in line while Jeremy loads the shopping cart. And what do you hold there?
That's a non-starter.
You say absolutely not.
That's their prop. It's not life or death. It isn't an issue of health or disability. They were just not well organized, and they shouldn't.
It doesn't matter that they're waiting in line.
Nope, they missed
the guy waits in line. You have no compassion.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Nope, zero.
Yeah, you do have to be ready. You do have to be ready.
This is the side of no compassion. Go ahead.
I think we all have to learn respect for one another.
Oh, here we go. Okay? You're the asshole. Tell me what you say.
Any line I get in automatically becomes the slowest.
Okay.
I don't know why, but it just happens.
That may be true.
Because that'll be the one where the guy rushes up with the shopping cart full of stuff after I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then they'll discover that their bank card doesn't work or the item isn't priced in the computer.
Can one guy stand there hold the line?
I have watched that happen.
Should he? Again, these all do happen. There's no question about what does happen. These do happen.
If he gets up to the cashier empty-handed and his buddy shows up suddenly, I'm going to be annoyed, but I'm not going to be really, really angry. Unless they've got 3 shopping carts full of pop and snacks.
Then you're really bad.
I do have to say that I have seen or have been in line and had a person say, "Oh, got the milk," and send their kid running to the back of the store for the milk. And I've been okay with that.
You still say go back to the back of the line.
No, I'd say I'd give the kid $5 and say, go through the,
Stand back there.
go get the milk and go through the automatic checkout. We're not holding up
No,
this line.
no, but if you're not gonna hold the line up, you have no problem with it though.
Well, you're holding the line up by sitting there waiting.
No,
for the
let's say,
child-
let's say,
yeah,
let's say the kid can run back and forth, so what's the big deal?
And make
You're
it
saying
private.
only
No, I
only
didn't
holds the
let-
line up.
I didn't let my children.
No,
do
you're
it.
saying only holds, but you agree, if it doesn't hold the line up, if you have a lot of stuff to
I
go.
thought that's what we're talking about.
No, I'm saying, if it didn't hold the line up, you'd have no problem, only when it holds the line up.
You are changing.
No,
the
I'm asking you a
scenario.
question.
Now, we're talking
I'm
about
asking
waiting in line, not holding.
I'm asking you a question. What happens is, she says, I forgot the milk, fine. So now she sends the kid back. You're only
If you're
against,
still checking
You're
out your
still
stuff.
you're
they
only
can go
against it if they're
back.
not, if they finish scanning.
Right.
That's all, okay.
Yeah,
Just understand, you're specifically, you held up the line. If it's before that,
That's fine.
that you don't care. So they're,
not that you have to wait for the,
right, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's go. Next page. You ready?
And if they're using an EBT to buy these snacks, I'm gonna get really annoyed.
Okay. It is important to keep in mind the broader, overreaching concerns before we discuss details. So, first, we are commanded to sanctify Hashem's name, what we call the Kiddush Hashem. We are also commanded to be good and upright people. So, the Ramban, Nachmanides, illustrates this when he says, this comes from the verse, Deuteronomy, Devarim, so 6:18. I could look on the side, okay. So our rabbis have said that which is right and good refers to a compromise and going beyond the requirement of the letter of the law. This is a great principle, for it is impossible to mention in the Torah all of the aspects of man's conduct with his neighbors and friends, and all of his various interactions, and the ordinances of all societies and countries. In all matters, one should do what is good and right, including even compromise and going beyond the requirements of the law. Thus, a person must seek to refine his behavior in every form of activity until he is worthy of being called good and upright. Okay? So, in this case of if I just take that one, but stopped there, it seems in all three cases, I should go beyond the letter of the law if I'm the one holding it up and say, no, I can't do that. Or either that, or to say, as you all suggested, each time a person comes into lie and say, excuse me, I have 15 people, I'm holding a spot. Do you mind? Of course we mind. So please go in front of me, sort of thing. Okay, you'll never get to that ride, so just give it up at that point. Okay. The concept of waiting in line is discussed in a number of sources. Here we go. So one source, this comes from the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The verse says, justice you shall follow. Otherwise known in Hebrew as tzedek tirdof. And this means the first mention of justice refers to a decision based on strict law. The second to a compromise. How so? For example, where two boats sailing on a river meet, if both attempt to pass simultaneously, both will sink. By the way, if you really want to update this case, if you're going down certain streets in South Bend, the cars are parked on both sides.
Somebody's got to go.
Either you want a tall, skinny car, or somebody's going to have to pull to the side. Comes to a stop sign, same sort of thing. We have the rules of the road, but nonetheless, people aren't always following those rules of the road. As my father would say, it doesn't matter who's right, all that matters is who's left. Okay? So it's something to keep in mind. But you can update this case. Okay? So where two boats sailing on a river meet, if both attempt to pass simultaneously, both will sink. Whereas if one makes way for the other, both can pass without mishap. Likewise, if two camels meet each other while on the ascent to Beit Haran, how then should they act? If one is laden and the other unladen, the latter, the one that's not loaded, should give way to the former. If one is nearer to its destination than the other, the former should give way to the latter. If both are equally near or far from their destination, make a compromise between them. The one which is to go forward compensating the other which has to give way. Okay, so like I said, normally you come to an intersection. The one who got there first gets to go. If you both came there on time at the same time, so then the person on the right gets to go first before the person on the left. Of course, then I have to start thinking which is the left, which is the right. But okay. Besides all that, there are rules of the road based upon this Mishnah, probably. Okay. But that's teaching us that I have to make a decision here. Who gets to go? Now, it's interesting that if the camel in this case is laden, and the other one's not, so we let the one who has a big load to go. Why? Because he's torturing the poor animal at this point. So that's a compromise that I'm giving in for. But ultimately, this is the strange thing. If they're both equal to everything, then I have to compensate the other guy for letting me go first. It's an interesting concept. I have to compensate you for letting me go first. I don't know if the compensation should be is to just say thank you very much, or, with the salute. I always give a salute and say thank you, but I'm not sure what. Or you have to actually pay the guy because of your loss of time, whatever the case may be. So now, if you apply that to these cases, the first case where Michael wants to let this kid on crutches in, it would seem that he should be given away anyway because he's laden. He's at a disadvantage, so let him go first. Okay? If everybody's equal, such as in the case of the amusement ride, where everybody seems to be equal, it seems that if I want to compensate everybody for their place in line, okay. But otherwise, it seems I shouldn't be doing that. And certainly Stephen and Jeremy, they really don't have a leg to stand on in any manner because, like I said, they were late, so they're late. You have to ask people in line. Look, I have to get to my grandmother's surprise party. Aunt's surprise party, and so can I cut in line? That's what I'm saying. If they say yes, fine. If they don't, you can't. You shouldn't be able to do that. Certainly not to save. If you're going to, if it's going to hold the line up because you got more than 3 items. Let's say you only get 3 items, then you can wait in line. Who cares? But if you're going to hold the line up and suddenly you're coming up with 3 wagons, it's not nice. Okay? So.
Is that another Bostonian?
I'm sorry?
Wagons. Is that another Bostonian?
Line?
Wagons instead of carts.
Oh yes, that's okay. Okay. Another Bostonian. Okay, I tell you. I am who I am. Okay. So here he goes. He says we consistently encounter situations where 2 people are interested in performing an activity that can only be performed one at a time. So the Talmud states that when this happens, the parties must work out a compromise that allows both to perform that activity. So the Nesiv, Rabbi Natali Berlin, asks, why does the Talmud choose this case as a specific example of a compromise? Don't we know what a compromise is? Compromise is, I give you something, you give me something. That's a compromise. The Sivi answers that the Talmud is trying to teach us that in certain cases, all parties are required to accept the compromise. The sailor with the lighter load would be perfectly justified from a strictly legal perspective to attempt to pass the boat with the heavier load. He got there first. I can go. Yet because it's peaceful justice to allow the boat with the heavier load to pass, the sailor is required by law to accept that as a valid compromise. Okay? So now, if that's the case, then you have case 1.
But honestly, I don't know what the rule is in a river. There are rules for open water.
You mean in the Navy?
No, for general sailing, general boat operation.
Really?
There are rules of the road, yeah.
Okay.
And sailboats, depending on which way the wind's coming out of the boat, determines who gets right away.
It wouldn't go by load?
No. And it would probably work the same way, how you're taking the wind would probably work the same way in a navigable river. But if it's narrow enough the 2 boats can't pass each other,
right,
that's a problem.
Well, that's when one has to pull over to the side.
Yeah, that's not much of a river.
Okay. Well, in those days, think about what they had. They had a little raft that's going down that you could just pull over by just like a rowboat sort of thing.
They had hulls, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying they're talking about a little boat this past.
Well, yeah, they didn't
They're not
have,
talking about a made for ship.
you don't know.
We can pretty much guess that.
Could be a simple dhow, still be a sailboat.
Okay. I'm guessing that.
Pillpole, put
Those
some on.
have been around forever, so.
Okay. That's not Pillpole, that's trying to figure out the case, that's all. Do we only require compromise? Pillpole would be saying, what does the pole look like?
What is the load
Right,
in the
what's
boat?
the load? What is it?
Which direction is the wind from?
Right. And what would happen if a donkey passed? And that this is just trying to figure out the
The
case.
donkey!
There you go.
Ah!
Okay.
And actually on a river, you would probably, whoever's going downstream should probably yield.
Why?
Because
Who's
the guy,
faster?
the guy who's going upstream is gonna
That's
have a
far.
harder time getting,
Okay, negotiate.
yeah.
I don't know, I just think the bigger guy should probably go first, so the little one doesn't get pushed on the way through.
Well, the argument would be, if I'm small, I'm gonna fit through easier. So I shouldn't have to wait for you to pass.
Yeah.
And so we're saying, but the halach will go the other way. That, no, I'm going, that the big boat or the big load gets to go first and not me, because it's like he's presenting the argument, it's probably hard to maneuver.
Oh,
So
yeah.
let that guy go, and then you go. Even though it's going to be a little longer, still, the halacha would demand us to compromise. That's what they're calling compromise. Give in. Okay, compromise to what's going on, to the situation. Like my father would say again, now it doesn't matter who's right, it matters who's left. This way both of us can make it and go home, great.
Yeah, it benefits both people. It makes it safer for
Right,
everyone.
right. Okay? So it says, like I said, case 1, we're on page 3. It says, do we only require compromise when both parties join the line at the same time, or do we require a compromise even when one party comes after the other? If first come, first serve, is first come, first serve simply a value that should be weighed against other values or is peaceful justice only a tiebreaker when both parties arrive at the same time? So the Meiri seems to go with both ways. He says, again, this is going on the Gemara that we just learned from Sanhedrin about the boats and the boats and the donkey, the camel. Sorry, I'm getting donkey on my mind there. There are situations where strict judgment, what we call midat hadin, strict judgment, is not applied, and one must figure out, based on principles of compromise and merit, which side is more deserving when strict judgment is not applicable. In situations similar to these, anytime we say that one party can tolerate the weight better than the other, he should wait for his friend. If there is a healthy individual, he should wait for the sick individual. And in other similar situations, if they are equal, the first one there takes precedence. Okay, so again, in case 1, even though you all were saying you have to ask the people behind you, the answer is no, you don't. He's sick. He gets to take preference. We give him precedence. We give him precedence. We say, go. You can't do it. The same way as you're sitting. I don't know if they have it or not, because I don't take buses. But I know that in New York, when I used to get on the subway, there was, and also the buses. I think also in Boston had it. The first couple of seats would say, if you're, please give these seats up for the elderly. So even if I'm sitting there, an elderly person comes in, I'm supposed to give my seat up. Okay. Now, in the old days when I was growing up, you didn't need a sign there. Your parents would smack you if you didn't get up. Okay. It was just common courtesy. Now we need a sign to enforce common courtesy. But that's what the halakha is calling for. Yeah.
I didn't say you had to ask. I said it would have been a courtesy to ask, because I said even if they said no, then
Right, but the halakha is saying you don't even ask.
they say you don't have to ask. Is it saying you shouldn't ask?
It doesn't. It's just assume that you're going to do the right thing.
Being
It's
courteous.
assuming you're doing. You could be courteous. You could say, "Do you mind if I want to do it?" But it's the understanding is you really have to yield.
Mm-hmm.
You have to yield your spot. Okay.
The courtesy is an extra stringency.
Right, that you've applied to
So I'm
yourself.
being flawed.
Okay, there you go. So now, according to Meiri, first come, first served does not apply when it is clear that one of the parties cannot handle the weight as well as the other parties. However, if there is no clear reason to allow one party to move ahead of the other, to the head of the line, we employ first come, first served. So now let's go to the second one, where again, or the third case, where there seems to be no reason for them to be able to cut, based upon first come, first served, we would say no. Based upon, if you want to be even sickness, we still say no. So right now, it seems only in the first case we have pretty much a clear-cut ruling that you could say yes, no problem. Okay. So he gives you questions for thought. He's so cute in the first one. So Meiri writes that it is clear that if it is clear that one party cannot handle the weight as long as the other, he's moved ahead of the line. Now he asks, and these are questions for you to think about. What would you include in the category of can't handle the weight? Okay? You have to make an age here, an age limit, 65, 70, 75, whatever you consider old these days. I don't know what people consider old anymore. It could be 100 at this point, because everybody's, Baruch Hashem, getting up there. And so it's that'll be one of the questions. Or is it that the person is dog-tired because they were cleaning for Pesach, and that's why they can't handle the weight? What's going on? Number two, what if this individual cannot handle the weight because he's very impatient? He's looking, he's texting, he's doing everything, he's waiting to get online. Maybe he wants to, I can't handle this weight. Or is it just a matter of, let me finish what I'm saying. Is it just a matter of physical infirmities, or is it also a mental infirmity?
Which case are we talking about?
That's all these cases. When the Meiri is saying that the party can't wait as long as the others. So is it, by the way, this happened. Somebody was, it was Erev Shabbos, Friday night, nearly Mincha. The wife needed the medicine, or the baby wife needed the medicine. So they went to Walgreens, and at Walgreens on Ireland and Miami, there's always a line there. I think they have people lined up to have a line there, so that you could wait. The poor guy is tittering. He's, how do you say tittering? He's nervous. Shabbos is coming, and he's late Shabbos. I mean, he was really into Shabbos, and he's still 3 in line, and and he's, what am I going to do? Shabbos, I have to get home. And so somebody who else was also there said to him, why don't you just tell the people it's religious and you have to get out of here. You need the medicine now. Which the person said, I can't do that. He said, don't worry. He needs... The guy did it for him. And the company said, oh, we're so sorry. They gave him the medicine. Now, how does that make the other people feel? It's the same case, though. You would say, you should have thought about it. I'm not really saying you would. I'm not really saying you would. But if I was going to go by your original statement, say, hey, you should have prepared better. Yeah. But you don't always know because it gets sick or whatever else. So, and you weren't expecting them to take that long to make the medicine. But that would be a case of can't handle the weight. He's totally healthy. This person's totally healthy. But he has to but Shabbos is coming in. And the world doesn't understand Shabbos. They don't understand Yom Tov. It's a non-Jewish world out here. So, but in the same time, I can't handle the weight. I'm really stuck. So what do I do? And the kid or the person needs that medicine. So now I have to start saying, if you knew what I had, you let me go first. You know the joke? Everybody know the joke? You know what? An old man gets in line. It's a long line. So he says to the person in front of him, if you knew what I had, you'd let me go in front. The guy is saying, okay, go ahead. And he keeps repeating this all the way up the line. And finally gets to the front of the line and he makes it there. And the person says, I'll let you go. Go ahead. But you have to tell me what you have. He said, chutzpah. Okay? So if it's a matter of just a chutzpah, you should let him do it. But otherwise,
I'm
not
sure
a problem.
hoping you're not the guy that asked the question. Because that would be
I was
catastrophic.
standing in line at Walgreens,
There you go.
trying to buy a medicine medicine that had been prescribed as a rescue medication.
Right.
And it cost $100 for 6 pills. Something outrageous like that. And so I couldn't afford it. I just had the paper prescription. And I was standing in the line, literally dying, inching my way up. But I finally got the medication.
Okay.
Because they were potchking around, and I said, "This is a rescue med. I'm having some serious heart problems right now. Do you think you could fill this quickly?" Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
That and I have Ebola would work very well.
Okay. So, and the last question he asked is, what if he claims that he has a very important meeting to attend, and if they wait, he will be late? So, for there, I think we would all say the same thing, jump in a lake. That's not very important. But now he's going to give you an application. So the first case seems to be directly related to the Meiri statement. He was on crutches. So he asked, how do you apply the Meiri statement to that case? Who should make a decision that someone should cut the line because he has a need to cut? Is it up to the person with the need, the person who allows him to move ahead, or all the people that are ahead of him? That was your case. That's what you said. Ask. Let everybody admit, let everybody agree. If the rest of the people in the line object, should Michael switch places with the boy who has crutches? That would be Michael's choice, of course. But again, if if they all object, should he still switch? If he's the last in line, who cares? But if it's the first in line, he can't. The question would be, could he do it? According to what we're saying about the ship and everything else, you should be able to. But again, you have you have to define what is need, what can't handle the weight. It's not so easy. Okay, it's really not that easy. Next one. Does first come, first serve mean that you actually have to show up in the line, show up in person in order to be served? Can someone come in your place and hold a spot in line? Does it make a difference if he is holding his own spot? So the Talmud discusses the case of a lost, ownerless item waiting to be claimed by the first person who takes it. And there is a dispute, of course, whether one person can take the item on behalf of someone else. So here we go. This is the Gemara in Bava Metzia. Both Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda say, if a man lifts up a found object for his neighbor, the neighbor does not acquire. In other words, if I find a lost object and I pick it up, it's mine. Finders keepers, losers weepers. Period. As long as there's no identification on it. If there's no way that I can, it was just left, there's no way to identify who owns it. If I would put up, I found a $5 bill, while everybody would come and want to claim it, there's no way they could identify it. So that becomes an ownerless object, which I can pick up. Sorry? Right. But I can't pick up that same hefker object, same ownerless object for will. You can't say, this is for will. No, tough luck. Can't do that. Okay? So it's why? Because it is like the one who voluntarily seizes a debtor's property on behalf of a creditor, thereby causing loss to the debtor's other creditors because they could no longer seize that property. And one who seizes a debtor's property on behalf of a creditor, causing loss thereby to the debtor's other creditors, does not acquire the property. Understand what's going on? If I have if there's $10 and I have two debtors and I owe each one $10, so the oldest debt must be paid first. Okay? So now what happens if I give, so now the same thing. So now I lose money, or somebody seizes the money, the creditor comes for somebody else, he's getting it for his friend, not the shliach. He's not the messenger, but he's getting on behalf of that person because he decided, let me grab the money while it's still here. No, you can't do that because now you're stealing it from the other creditor. You have no right to it. That's a stealing situation. Okay. Rav Chia ben Abba said, in the name of Rav Yochanan, if one lifts up an object for his neighbor, there's an argument here, the neighbor acquires it. So according to Rav Chia bar Abba, he didn't agree with the previous opinion. And he said, no, if I lift up for my neighbor, I can. I don't have to worry about some other person coming along and finding it. He's not arguing on the debtor case. He's arguing if it's a lost object. Let's understand that, okay? So now the position of Rav Nachman or Rav Chisda is clear. You can't claim something on behalf of someone else if doing so will affect others who would also like to claim that item. Yet, Rav Yochanan is of the opinion that one can claim a lost item on behalf of someone else. So Tosfos explains, even though Rav Yochanan rules in the 9th chapter of Ketubot and the 1st chapter of Gittin, so we have contracts and divorce. Okay, 2 types of contracts here. That one who seizes property on behalf of a creditor does not acquire, that is only because one cannot apply the principle that one who can acquire for himself can acquire on behalf of others, because the debtor does not owe anything to the seizer. Okay? For example, one can only acquire on behalf of others what one can acquire for oneself. However, so that would be the debt. If you don't owe me anything, I can't grab your money on behalf of Handalea, who you do owe. Tough luck. Handalea wants to make me a shaliach. That's something else. If she points me to get this stuff for her, I can do it. But I can't on my own say, oh, I know he owes Handalea money, so now I'm going to grab this, boom, you didn't owe me a dime. I can't do it because not only does Handalea, not only does this person own Handalea, but he also owes Meyer. So as a result, either one of them have to fight it out. But I can't do it. Okay. However, regarding a lost item, the principle that one can acquire the item oneself, one may acquire for others, applies, and therefore it is a valid acquisition. Somebody lost something, I can pick it up and I can acquire it. So I have equal rights to this. So if I acquire it, if I pick it up and say, I'm acquiring it from Will, very nice. No problem. There's no problem for that. I can make the acquisition. Okay? That's why you have this argument. So it's permissible to, now watch how this works. It's permissible to claim an item on behalf of someone else because one has the option of claiming it for oneself. If one cannot claim the item personally, one cannot claim it on behalf of others, even according to Rav Yochanan. Tosfot does not address whether one can claim more than one is actually entitled to. For example, let's assume a bakery has a doorbuster campaign to give away 10 loaves of bread to the first 10 people who come to the bakery. However, they limit the giveaway to one per customer. Can one person come and claim one loaf for self and one for a friend? You say no, but how do you know? That's the question. I made an acquisition on one. Does it give me the right to make an acquisition on two? Seemingly, you would say no, but there's no guarantee about that. You may say, well, I don't know. So that question would work into the line. What were you going to say?
It's different in that situation, I think, because the bakery is a business entity making a proposal to customers stipulating one per customer.
Right.
So that's a whole different thing than finding a Hefker object that nobody else can claim with identification. Then you can give it to whoever you want.
No, that's true. That's 100% true. But it was saying that. Oh, I hear what you're saying. Okay, I'll let you know there. So let's go to the next one. I'm giving it to that one. Mark down the date and the time. Yeshua Falk. He writes that one can never claim for a friend more than what one could claim for himself. Well, that's what you were just saying. Rav Shaddai Cohen, the Shach, disagrees and maintains that. And by the way, we normally rule by the Shach because it's a later commentary. He disagrees and maintains that one who claims that when one claims for oneself, one can also claim for others beyond what one is personally entitled to. However, Rav Shlomo Eiger limits the Shach's ruling and writes that if there are two items and one is only entitled to one of them, claiming the second is considered a separate event, and the claim to the first item provides no entitlement to the second item. Okay, so that's why I stopped. We're going to run into it. You have a whole argument there. According to the Shach, which was, like I said, normally we would rule by him, but Shlomo Eiger's a later one, so we're going to rule like him. So you have a whole question going on here. But depending on who I'm ruling by, will determine whether or not I can be in line for this. Okay, that's what he's saying. Is Rivka entitled to hold spots for her family while they're enjoying another ride? Do we consider each spot to be a separate item? If that's true, then the answer is no. Is there a difference if each person claims a spot in line and then comes back 30 minutes later? In other words, they all lined up and then they went away. What would be the rules of peaceful justice state? Because here, let's say you have Margie said that maybe you have a woman the old lady who can't stand up. She has to sit down. The family is they're handicapped in some manner. So peaceful justice would seem to allow them to sit down. Are there other considerations when other people in the line will be upset? So everybody else is picking on. Okay, you're lining up, you're getting ready to go, and suddenly I get in line and I pull 5 people, and I lost my place. Oh, what happened? I was counting on going in next. Okay, so that would be the application. How do you do this? Is it separate? Is each spot separate or not? That's the first thing we have to decide. So if I'm normally in a ride, every spot is separate, except if I get bumper cars. So there I can fit 2 in a car.
I didn't think you were going to come all this way to hear the halakha.
No, I'm saying if I get the bumper cars and I want to bring somebody else in and they just want to drive with me, that doesn't matter. They can come in because who wants to be in the bumper car with me?
And who cites that?
Say it again?
Who cites that?
That's just common sense. That's just a common sense early. But when it comes to the Ferris wheel, there each seat is a separate thing. So I should not be able to, unless it's peaceful justice system where the person couldn't stand in line, then I shouldn't be able to grab the other seat.
Now, what's the difference between the seating capacity and
the seating capacity of the Ferris wheel is each one has a seat, right? No, but I'm saying there's 2 people. 2 people. That's the ride. I'm going to sit next to somebody anyway. When it comes to a bumper car, nobody wants to be on the other side because they can't drive. They can't do anything. They're just passengers. Yeah. You're doing nothing. You're just driving around and being smashed. So who wants
children, that? Don't you? They love to be smashed.
No, but they want to drive. They want to drive.
Well, all right. I see your point.
So again, if you had 2 sides you could drive, then it would be a problem too. Couldn't do that. Okay. Last case. Okay. So it says, why don't you move ahead of me? That's what he's calling it. How would you apply peaceful justice to holding a spot in line without having all of the items readily available? How are you? What would happen if everyone would hold a spot in line while they gather their items? If peaceful justice doesn't allow holding a spot while shopping, neither Stephen nor Jeremy may enter the line until the shopping cart is filled with the items they plan on purchasing. Like everyone is saying. Let us look at the case from a different perspective. Stephen and Jeremy are now waiting in line with a shopping cart containing only a few items. At least it's in front of them with over 50 items. She can tell that they are in a rush. Should she let him pass? Again, if I'm replying, let's apply what we said before. Now think about this. It's going to go backwards. If I have a big ship and I had a small ship, who went first?
The big one.
The big one. So by logic, by halakha, we should be saying that Lisa shouldn't give up her spot. Rather, she should push it through. But we all understand that if I have 3 items and you have 50 items, why would you torture me to wait for your 50 items?
Then you'd be like labeling the person with time.
Right. Now you're killing me. When you should be letting me go. And assume, by the way, that the 3 items or less place is closed. We only have 1 place open, okay? And we're running through because it's late at night. You came with your whole kit and caboodle of shopping, and I have 3 items. So common courtesy would say to you, you would like to go ahead of me. Okay? And by the way, that's normally what does happen. Okay? Normally, people don't make you wait for that unless they're really out of their minds. And they're just rude. But that's the sort of case where we reverse the Talmud. Because the Talmud would say, logically, let the guy with the most go in front. He has the biggest road. That's what it seems to be saying from Sanhedrin. Okay? So we previously presented this case of 2 boats that cannot pass through a certain area. At the same time, the rule was, like we said, the heavier boat passes first. So now, if David Alevi Siegel notes the dispute in this matter, he says, the Shema in paragraph 22 explains that they are traveling side by side. In my humble opinion, it would seem that the law is in fact the opposite. Since they can travel one after another, why should we impose on the lighter one to be delayed by the traveling slowly behind the heavier one? In truth, it would be preferable for the heavier one to follow the lighter one. It seems that the bride is dealing with two parties traveling in opposite directions. So here, if you apply to our case, we're all going in the same direction. So, like logic would say, if you're in line with stuff, 50 items, and I only have 3, you should let me go first, according to that. Okay, so according to the Shema, the boats are heading in the same direction, and nevertheless, the boat with the lighter load must stop and allow the larger boat to pass. According to Taz, if they're heading in the same direction, the lighter boat should pass first, because if the heavier boat goes first, the lighter boat will have to wait for the heavier boat for the duration of the passageway. The case in the Talmud is one where they're heading in the opposite directions, and the lighter boat is only required to pull up momentarily while the heavy boat passes. Okay, again, one of these roads in the snow, or any time actually, the way they park, they take up 2 sides. You really are in the narrow straight. You really are in trouble. So whoever's going to, if it's a big truck or something else, let the truck should pull over so I can just shoot right through. Or if I'm the heavy one, I should wait and let the other guy pull through. Okay, that's just common decency, common sense. That's if we're going the opposite directions. If I'm right, that's according to one opinion. The other opinion is if I'm going in the same direction. So we have an argument as to what the Talmud really means. It's always good when you get into that sort of a thing, because we have to figure out how to rule at that point. So the Taz's opinion is that in a situation where one can move through a pathway or a line faster than the others, peaceful justice states that the faster individual should be given precedence, so that he is not required to wait for the slow individuals. The Shema seems to disagree with this. So now, how do we apply this? How would you apply this dispute to someone waiting to pay for a few items in the supermarket? Should we employ peaceful justice in the situation where the person has a lot of groceries, will be asked by numerous people to allow them to pass? Who decides whether the individual with only a few items should move ahead? Okay, so again, if it's one-on-one, not a hard thing to do. But if I'm just giving you up your space, again, not such a difficult, unless there's people behind you, it shouldn't be such a difficult. But if I'm going through a whole bunch of people, again, I'm lining up, there's 3 people who have 10 items and I have 3. So, tough luck. I mean, are we going to apply peaceful justice here and say, okay, according to me, this is in, I have to wait. According to the strict justice, I got in late, I have to wait. But really, it's a few items. So let me go ahead and get over with. Again, that's a question that we have to deal with and something that we constantly get involved with. So these are real cases. Like I said, we changed the name, but it happens every single day. And if you think about what you do, you'll run into these cases, and you'll have to decide: are you the big boat? Are you the small boat? Are you traveling in the same direction? Are you traveling the opposite direction? Or do you have some overriding reason that you should be first, or that some other person should be first, they're sick, whatever else is going to be? Can I save the place in line for those people? Can I make an acquisition on something that can I only make an acquisition on that which I myself could acquire, or even something that I could not acquire? Those are all the questions that you have to start thinking about when you're sitting in line, whatever the line may be, even driving on the road, the right of way. Just because it's right, does it mean that you should do it?